Let's start with what happened in Miami last night and leading up to the game. Who was in charge there? Best you can tell. Who runs the event that led to such a garbage way for people to get into the stadium?
Buddy, you and I have been living in this country. We've been doing sports a long time. I think Miami has hosted some big events, if
Super
I'm not
Bowls.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have less security than a Hurricanes versus Ball State football game, that tells you that Miami, the Dolphins family, Hard Rock was not in charge. From everything I can gather over the last 24 to 48 hours, is that CONCACAF, the U.S. owners of these stadiums, provided the base of what CONMEBOL should have done. They chose not to do that. They chose to take the money, and it's gross. It's real gross. And Rich, I tweeted this morning because I think a lot of people are misconstruing this. It's the exact same thing that happened against England, Italy in the 2021 European Cup final. I was in the building. They blew down the gates. They came in the middle of the game. Ian Dark and I are sitting there calling the game, and people without tickets were coming into the press box, sitting next to us.
Whoa.
And so what all the organizations need to do here, that was UEFA, and initially they came out and blamed the fans, and then UEFA studied it, and they blamed Wembley and the FA. I think the same thing's going to happen here. I do not think this is on anyone within the United States. I think this is CONMEBOL. They chose money over safety, and that's a real black eye on that organization because they're going to have to own up to it in the next 12 months here.
All right, two things to follow up on. First one, so you're sitting there with Ian Dark on live television, and fans are just strolling into the press box taking a seat? Is that real?
Rich, yes, Rich, no joke. It's the scariest I've ever felt in an environment. And obviously, all of us in the sports media world, we've read the horror stories of the hooligans back in the 80s and those awful stories, Hillsborough being one of those. Point being is that was 5 days after the mask mandate was released, and they were not prepared for just 20,000 people with no tickets bum rushing the stadium. And I looked at Ian, and I would elbow him here occasionally, and I'm pointing this way. It was as uncomfortable as I've ever felt in the stadium as a player. And I've been to Boca versus River in Argentina. This was very uncomfortable. So a lot of people throwing stones at South America. I just want to remind people it happened in Europe as well.
Yeah, because that reading up on everything in advance of today's show, that I was reading in South America, there's a lot of fans who show up unticketed, and thus the organizers of last night's event should have realized that in advance. And so you're saying essentially this is not a bellwether for what's going to happen during the World Cup in a couple years?
No chance. One, FIFA's already seen this, and their security is exponentially better than anything that CONMEBOL will have done in their past and in the future. Two, I think this helps the United States, Mexico, and Canada for the World Cup because they don't want to have that look again. But anyone saying the United States can't host a World Cup, Rich, they've hosted the biggest events in the world. So don't tell me that the United States can't host this. This was 100% the United States owners, the United States stadium, the infrastructure. They all offered the proper infrastructure for this tournament. CONMEBOL chose less than what they did in 2016 when Copa América Centenario was in the exact same country. They didn't have any of this. They chose to take the money. They chose to take the bigger paycheck. And unfortunately, I think they're going to have to write a bigger check to pay for some of the damages.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.